Hello, my name is Kai, and today we're going to be talking about Liverpool's 2-1 loss to Wolves at Molineux. Now, before I get into it, it'd be great if you could like the video, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on Twitter and Substack at The Counterpress. Now, we're going to begin by looking at the pitch. We played a 4-2-3-1 like we usually do, and if you're Arne, you would say maybe a 4-3-3, because he likes to group all of the midfielders together and the forwards together. But interestingly enough, we replaced Joe Gomez from the win against West Ham with Jeremy Frimpong. Kind of makes sense. Both players are injury prone. You probably don't want to play them in back-to-back games, and you need to rotate in that fullback position. I somewhat expected Andrew Robertson to play this game, but I think there's probably a high chance that he plays in the FA Cup. I imagine Joe Gomez probably plays too, but I wonder if we're going to risk Ibrahima Konate and Verge again in that game. But for this one, this is what we played. Of course, no Florian Wirtz. He's expected to come back against Galatasaray, so again, not at the weekend. We still persisted with our wing pairing of Mo Salah and Cody Gakpo because, of course, we don't really have options that Arne wants to try, even though I would like to see him play Rio. We'll probably see that on Friday. And, I mean, Chiesa isn't that much of a difference, maybe just interesting, and, of course, Mo did score a goal. But we're going to start by looking at the pitch, and then I'll come back to this, and we'll talk a little bit further. So here we are, we're initially not really looking at like what I would call highlights. We're kind of just trying to see what our build-up and pressing look like. So here's an example of us kind of soft pressing. You see players like Hugo Ekitike and Cody Gakpo both on-rushing. Alexis is on-rushing. Everyone's kind of front-footed here, looking to close down the ball. They start to play it out a little bit. Ball gets kind of pinged around in the air. It's kind of very hard to see. You know, there's anticipation. If you can't see where the ball is, it's right here. But yeah, a lot of players are just kind of gathered around getting ready to win the ball. Cody ends up winning the ball. We end up getting it to Dom. Ball keeps getting pinged around. This time it gets picked up by, I believe that's João Gomez, because that's Andre and that's Angel Gomez, so that's probably who it is. They eventually are able to just play through us. I mean, the beauty of having someone like Angel Gomez, Andre, and João Gomez is that those players are able to just pass around through our midfield who, you know, take a lot of touches in order to pass, so they easily bypass us. They find, I believe that's Mateus Mane in behind. He ends up getting a cross in and nothing happens. But I think a big issue with this is how easy it is to just bypass us. I mean, it shouldn't be that easy to just play around us, but we have a very lethargic midfield that can't track runners very well. They have players who can pass the ball very well. So we keep going. I like this because it shows sort of our build-up structure. I'll do a big summary of this on the pitch after, but you see the semblance of the 3-2 here. You see, again, we have this pivot that's somewhat central, but Alexis is moving more towards the left. Grav central. Ball just kind of getting played around, trying to find Mac in the pocket. Ultimately, we get some play where it's Milos Kerkez to Alexis McAllister to Cody Gakpo back to Milos Kerkez, which I thought was interesting play. This reminds me a lot of Barisic at Rangers, very Van Bronckhorst. I've kind of said that over and over again. It gets back to Hugo Ekitike now. It gets to Hugo, who then passes it again to Kerkez, and he's in behind and gets fouled, which I thought that was a good bit of play. I think both of our fullbacks are very technical, so you can use them in a variety of different situations if you want to, so that's a good example of being able to do that. Again, we see a build-up shape here, which I think is odd. So we have, this is Cody Gakpo, but you could maybe substitute this with Ryan, this with Dom, and this with Alexis. And you have our two fullbacks here, which effectively means that in build-up you have 2 and then 5. So you'd have 7 in build-up, 7 players in build-up, and you would have 3 further forward. That's not really the setup of a team that's looking to attack. You see, as time progresses, you still have the fullback very deep here, and now it's 6, right, with Cody Gakpo, you know, still in a more reserved position. But this still isn't a very attacking formation. Of course, if you're using this to build up, I get it, but we're so lethargic on build-up that this isn't even doing anything. Verge is forced to play it back, play it across. We're still trying. This time you have Milos Kerkez coming in narrow because the pivot, which always has to have at least one of these guys central. Sometimes it's Grav with Alexis here. This time it's Alexis here with Grav here. So you have Milos Kerkez dropping in instead of maybe Dom for the other side or Jeremy. Ball gets played forward. Another issue we have is without someone like Florian Wirtz trying to occupy the positions of a 10, you're forcing Hugo to do it, which means Cody has to be box presence. But if Cody stays wide, because he's probably been told to do that by the manager, you have no box presence because Alexis is here, and you're pretty much left with Mo and Dom, two players who don't really like to occupy the box that much. Mo likes to come inside of the box when he can move and carry in. He's not just like a fox in the box, and Dom likes to box crash. Again, he won't occupy the position. See, he's just on the last line here, right? But he's not really having a bit of a battle, which you'd like to see. Something that Will Wright actually does for the under-21s. Ball eventually gets played over the top, ends up finding Jeremy Frimpong, who, again, we have technical fullbacks, so you can expect them to occupy positions like this. We do turn defense into attack decently well. I mean, these are the four players that were already forward. Jeremy Frimpong's here. This is Milos Kerkez, and you have your pivot. It's not horrible, but again, it's not great. I mean, there's not that many bodies occupying the last line. We attempt to get through. Nothing ends up happening. We keep pressing, and we get the ball out of play. The pressing here is decent. It's not great. I think out of possession, we're a bit disorganized. I do like how we're a bit more aggressive, but honestly, we're not really doing anything in possession, and we're not really using our pressing to act as a playmaker like someone like Jurgen Klopp would say. We're instead kind of using our press in order to just win the ball back or get it out of play, and it just seems very negative to me. Here's another example of just like, the 6 and build-up that we have here, where two fullbacks are coming in line with the pivot constantly. It's like we have threatened behind fullbacks, but we're not making them run in behind. Here's a good example of the bank of 7 again. We're going to ignore Hugo here and just say he's peeled off. But you have a midfield 3 here, right? So you would expect Dom to be the 10, but of course, like we saw last season, he drifts to the right, Alexis drifts to the left, so you have a 4-3, you have a 3 in the middle, and you have your 4. The two fullbacks are coming narrow, which is something that Arne did at Feyenoord, so that is somewhat consistent. And we saw throughout the game that they made a lot of underlapping runs, which isn't an issue. We've seen Kerkez do underlapping runs at AZ Alkmaar, but the problem is without it being fluid. You need them to make overlapping and underlapping runs constantly, especially if you have fullbacks who are good at that, like Jeremy Frimpong and Kerkez. You can't just keep latching them as part of build-up. I know part of this is a profile issue. I understand that we don't have a pivot that is very good at passing, but still, the manager should be trying something here. Curtis should maybe be starting, somebody who's more comfortable with this. But yeah, 7 players in build-up. Again, I mean, I know Dom is a little further forward here, but 7 players in build-up again, and nobody is able to do anything. In fact, this is 8 because of how deep Cody Gakpo is. But again, so many players, so deep to pick up the ball, and then we're not pinging it very fast. We're just very lethargic, taking our time so nothing happens. Frimpong on the ball again, and again, nobody. There's just nothing. There's no movement. There's no one to pass to. I mean, look at this. We have Hugo dropping in for the ball, and there's nobody in the middle here on the last line except Alexis, who likes to fill space. Not great if you're trying to score goals. So here we have Ryan as part of this, back build-up phase. Again, you have 6 in build-up here. In fact, I believe this is actually 7. I think Jeremy Frimpong is, somewhere down there. Ball ends up getting to Cody Gakpo. And again, there's just no one in the last line. There's no attempt to really attack here or do any build-up. It's just pass the ball out. Someone carries inside, and then you hope something happens. No final third coaching, anything. It's just kind of hit and hope. Again, we see Jeremy Frimpong carry from deep, and I'm just showing this because, again, there's just nobody in this last line. Like, Mo is so far away. There's always someone underlapping him. He doesn't get the opportunity to come inside here, which should be the benefit of someone like Jeremy Frimpong, is it'll let someone like Mo come inside, but it didn't really happen. Cody's not really in a position to receive the ball. Hugo's here. Alexis, Dom, so far away. Grab is so far away. The midfield is vacant. Meanwhile, look at how many players they have from their midfield. These are their 3 midfielders. This is the right wing back. They're occupying the middle so much better than we are. Constantly. Hugo, he can have the ball here. And again, I mean, there are players running in behind, but no support. Like, he has to get a pass out to someone like Alexis McAllister if he wants to get through. And look at how deep the fullbacks are again. So deep, constantly. I know our fullbacks are, again, technical. They can do this, but they're pace abusers. Now we have box presence and we have nobody in the half spaces. Just so weird. I mean, like, I guess we do, right? But you have nobody who's now out wide, right? Like, he has to make this run. And again, dominating the midfield if they ever needed to, Wolves. It's horrible. We end up getting the ball through, good passage of play, ultimately gets to Dom, gets to Frimpong. Now we're in a pretty good situation. And yeah, the ball comes back. nothing ends up happening here, but this was a better play. I mean, you eventually had enough players in the box on rushing. And honestly, I'm starting to understand how you can maybe play Hugo as a left winger with Isak as a striker. That's kind of what this game helped me realize, is I think Hugo could pretty easily do that role. I think we've been maybe a little bit too skeptical. I think he would be perfectly fine there. So again, an example of this underlapping run, right? So you have Cody Gakpo as your left winger, and you have Milos Kerkez underlapping constantly, right? And look how deep Dom is despite being the 10. But again, that's how he plays when you keep playing players like this. The ball comes out, and now you have Jeremy Frimpong doing the underlapping run, which tells me that it's coached. This is what Arne intended to happen. And yeah, it gets back to Dom. So the last bit I'm going to cover before we look at like the highlights, what we did very good and very bad, like that it was clippable, but this is still stuff that just happened in the game. So here, look, this is a decent setup. I kind of like when our fullbacks are so far forward. You have the ability for our wingers to play inside more. This is great. Players are committed forward, but we're playing so slowly. You have Jeremy Frimpong on the overlap. He doesn't find him, finds Dom. So slow. You see by the time Mo passes in each of these sequences, players have moved so much. Gets to Dom. Look, difference between player spaces again. They keep moving, right? So because we're not passing fast enough over and over again. We're cycling it back to Verge, right? You can see our midfield unit again, where our fullbacks are meant to be positioned because they're more in the underlapping positions. Our wingers are much further wide, which means that's the setup Arne actually wants. Kind of a fluid midfield three, if we're being charitable. Ball gets out wide again. There's just nothing. We're just doing these combinations out wide to go inside, and we're not dragging any players. I mean, that's just like very base level, like just problematic. So let's look back at the pitch here. So a couple of things that we saw on this is, you maybe have Hugo out here. You get Cody Gakpo maybe out on the left here. You get maybe Mo Salah out on the right. Frimpong is attempting to underlap here. Milos Kerkez is attempting to underlap here. Some version of Dominic Szoboszlai here. Alexis McAllister here. Ryan Gravenberch. Virgil van Dijk. Ibrahima Konate. This is effectively what we're trying to do. I don't hate the idea of Frimpong underlapping to drag Mo, to, drag this defender and let Mo, come inside here. But the thing is, we're playing a back three, right? So if they're going into their block of 5, they had, Angel Gomez, so maybe there's something like this. It's a little bit less optimal because there's still somebody here on Mo. What you should be trying to do in these situations is vary this a lot. So this switch should be happening constantly, so these two players don't know who to mark. And you should be doing the same thing with Gakpo and Kerkez, but we kind of were more rigid with just these underlapping runs, and it was always these underlapping runs from deep. So it looked like initially you're trying to do this, right? So you're trying to have support in midfield with the ball. And then when they can, like for example, they get the ball out to Mo, then they want to try to get Frimpong here and get the ball inside to him. Maybe he drags someone, they find space. But ultimately it'd lead to a lot of situations like this where you basically just have Hugo in the box, or maybe Alexis drifts in, or Dom drifts in. But it was just very slow and lethargic. And it's difficult because I think I'm not gonna go out on a limb and say like I'm so angry at Arne for the setup, because we've been doing it, right? And this is definitely something that he's been working towards in some way. But I just don't see, like I see there's some issues with profile, right? If I were to replace Alexis McAllister and Dom with like Mateus Fernandez, or not Dom, Alexis McAllister and Gravenberch with like Anderson and Mateus Fernandez, right? I could imagine the ball gets played quicker. You're able to find players like Hugo in between the lines for snapshots. Like you can find somebody like Cody Gakpo out wide. You can pass and move like we saw with Kerkez in wide areas more easily. He's able to get to the byline with more players in the box, and an easier cross attempt maybe directly into a player to score a goal. I understand that, but I mean, Arne's not even trying to attack is my issue. We know there are squad balance issues, but the fullbacks are so deep. It's almost like he's afraid he's going to lose the ball. I know there are wingbacks, right? So there's a little bit of pinning happening here, but you're playing, frankly, the 20th place team in the Prem. You have to be more on the front foot. You got to get these guys occupying, right? And on top of that, getting Dom in, you have to be playing with like 6 who are further forward. I don't want to see 7 players, like 6 to 7 players in initial buildup. You know, I don't want to see this. This is so isolated. And you know that if Flo was playing, right? If I, maybe get rid of Dom and I put Flo here, for example, he would be here. And this would have to happen more. And suddenly you have a link. So I get that some of it's a profile thing, but why aren't you telling, even if the issue is that Dom wants to defend, why aren't you maybe telling even like Alexis to be here and to take up these positions more? Why isn't he playing the 10 with Dom deeper if Dom's going to stay deeper anyway? And he could then be with Kirkes. I mean, that would make more sense to me than what we did. Again, I don't know if like I'm going crazy, right? Or if I'm misreading this, but I'm just confused, really. We didn't have a link from defense into attack. And Arne was only willing to make that link when he brought Chiesa and Rio on. So just very lethargic. There's no connection between defense and attack. And because of that, we also had a very open midfield. They were able to dominate with the 4 midfielders they were effectively playing. It wasn't great. Definitely wasn't great. But let's go back. Okay, so now we're going to look at some of the little bits of highlights. So this is the beginning of the game. I think the club probably liked this because it shows us pressing and winning the ball. I had a lot of issues with this. Yeah, there's a soft press here. I'm not massively angry at a soft press. I just don't think we're executing this right. I think a lot of players don't know when they're supposed to jump right now, which is a bit odd. I think it's maybe because Arne has been coaching them into a mid-block that, it's not great. I think that is something that will probably keep getting better towards the end of the season. We did take maybe a little bit of a step back, but this shot I thought was just bad. Realistically, I think Cody should find Dom here, and then maybe Dom finds Mo. But again, our players are just over-carrying, not passing the ball quickly, and just taking horrible shots. I mean, sure, we allegedly had over 2xG, but a lot of that came from set pieces that should have been converted but weren't. And we also just really don't have good transition coaching. And I understand that transitions aren't really just coached. I mean, like, players should be doing better. But the fact that we're only really generating transitions when, like, a player like Hugo here intercepts and he somehow keeps skipping past people, which this sequence made me just run. I mean, incredible. Imagine the link up. Gets the ball here. Realistically, he should be trying to find someone here because this pass to Mo is difficult. He should have been trying to find someone here, but no one is occupying that space. This is like so obvious to me, a space that you should try to occupy, and there's just no one there. We get the ball to Jeremy Frimpong and he just whacks it and it goes wide. Another example of Hugo out wide. I thought this was great. Milos Kerkez is even overlapping him. You have Cody doing box presence, but again, somebody should be in this half space here. Still shocked that I'm just virtually never seeing enough players occupy. Eventually we get Milos Kerkez out wide, which is, I think, a better position for him. Recirculate back. And Dom takes an outrageous shot here, but this is better. If this was Isak, I do kind of, see what we'd be doing long term. I only really wanted to show this sequence because I think it kind of makes sense if you had Ekatike here and Isak here. Kind of gives me like a little bit of hope. Of course, you don't just solve the problems with different players. A lot of it is coaching, but this is a bit of an idea. Here's where we saw Frimpong a lot, sort of in the right half space. He gets fouled here, which again, yeah, he's good at that deep. I'll give him that. He's a good footballer. Mo being further inside here, I also think is great. If you can have someone like Dom here, you have the front 3. This is effectively your 4. Maybe you could say that this is the 5. And we're just very narrow, but I think eventually you're probably expecting Milos Kerkez to join and make it a 6, which is the ultimate goal, like the 3-1-6, the 2-2-6. He gets fouled. We whip in a free kick. Nothing ends up happening. But, I mean, yeah, I think Jeremy Frimpong is definitely our starting right back when he's fit. I mean, this game proved, I think, that Milos Kerkez and Frimpong aren't really the issues. It's sort of how they're being used. Right now, we're pretty much already through the first half, and we're looking at now Curtis is on the pitch, playing the ball back into Dom. Dom gets the ball further forward. You have Mo. You have a lot of players further forward. Again, as we committed more and more players further forward, I thought we looked better in attack, even though we conceded 2 goals for virtually no reason. Both of them were sort of mistakes. I mean, I think we did set up to effectively win this game, barring individual errors, but we didn't really set up this game to win by more than 1-0, which I do think is a little bit surprising for a coach. Ultimately, we end up winning a corner here. And this is the Hugo Ekatike header where it pretty much should have been scored, but Cody Gakpo clears it off the line. I don't really blame him. I think there were players arriving at the back post, and the goalkeeper, he probably thought he had to score it, but I think if he would have left it, Curtis would have scored it with his chest. and we would have been 1-0 up. But instead, we found ourselves 1-0 down to Rodrigo Gomez, and we equalized through Mo, but then, of course, we conceded again. So this was the automatic benefit of having Rio on the pitch and just in general of having our inside forward inside. If we're going to have Yan Diomande, yeah, he can be out wide, but we currently have Mo Salah, so you want him inside. Jeremy Frimpong here, Andrew Robertson, and look, wow, Rio, somebody who understands he has to be in the left half space, is there. Curtis, someone who's good at build-up and likes to find wide positions as a midfielder, is where he should be, and he gets the ball to Rio. It's not rocket science to find somebody in the left half space. He carries inside, he gets a cross in, or a shot across, difficult to say, but regardless, it ends up being a corner. Alexis McAllister gets the ball, distributes it to Dom, gives it back to Alexis. We try to get the ball inside, pings around a little bit, Mo fires it over, but I like the general play, by Rio. He was able to win a corner. The corner generated a shot, not a good one, but a shot. So, a bit of it is, different types of players. I think Rio needs to play more minutes. Again, you don't want to risk somebody at that young of an age, but he should be playing more minutes. So again, an example of Mo being on the inside here. You have Joe Gomez attempting to, overlap him. We have a bit of pressing here from Hugo, from Rio. Ultimately, the ball ends up getting knocked long. The issue with this sequence is Ibu's positioning. Verge is already here. I think what Ibu's worried about is that somehow the ball's going to get past Verge and then Tolo's going to turn and he's going to be free. But what he should be doing is being here. Ibu should be like right here so that if Tolo does get through, he wins the ball, right? And he's also simultaneously in a position to potentially stop him from passing to Rodrigo Gomez, but instead he overcommits, which is an individual error. It allows Tolo to easily find this pass into Rodrigo Gomes, who is pretty fast. He carries the ball, he gets past Ibu. Ibu almost gets there, but not enough, and he scores. Individual error. It is on Ibu, but that wasn't even close to being the biggest issue of this game. The biggest issue was just the general play. Again, the fullbacks are very deep here. Curtis. Of course, this time you have Federico Chiesa, so we do have a front four. We have more players occupying the byline, but still problematic. You're still having the fullback underlap, which is just horrible. I know Rio's more of an orthodox winger, so he'll drag somebody for space, but somebody else has to be occupying this space too. That's why I'm so in favor of Dom being on the left side of the pivot, because he can fill that space. Rio on the outside again. And, Rio attempts to shoot. This could have been a goal, but again, sometimes there are bad clearances to the midfield, but it doesn't mean that you concede a goal, Should Rio press? Yeah, but it wasn't the end of the world. In this clip, we're looking at, some soft pressing. They get the ball out. The structure here is mental, by the way. This is just crazy to look at because realistically, Verge is supposed to be right here. So if you, ignore this, you have effectively you have your the four attackers here, your two midfielders, and your four in defense. It's like a 4-2-4, which I actually thought helped us create a lot of chances. Mo gets the ball, gets past everyone, and he scores. Pretty self-explanatory. You get Mo inside, he scores goals. It's not rocket science. Doesn't mean that Mo can't go on the outside. In this example, he won a long throw, and we got the ball in. Almost got, something of a goal here. Ball ends up going to Verge. Again, getting the ball to Rio is always a great idea. Clips the ball in for Verge. Verge hits it right at the keeper, but better. Again, we just need more presence on the last line. And now we're just going to look at to end off the entire sequence that leads to Wolves' goal. Ball gets recycled to Dom. Dom ends up getting somewhat fouled. You now have a situation where you have your right back in Curtis and your two center backs as the people who are back. I thought, this was exceptionally well, how well everyone got back here. Everyone fell back really quickly. We ended up winning the ball, or launching it long. We got the ball, but it got launched back. Gets back to the Wolves players. They have a much better midfield than us in terms of being able to control the game. They end up getting the ball out wide. You still have Curtis, who's pretty far away, but could definitely stop a cross. You have your entire back four. Back here, you have Alexis and Rio here, who are sort of your pseudo pivot. Everyone ends up getting back. Curtis stays. There's just so many issues with this. There's so much space in the midfield here, and they have so many players here. They have 5 players right? Who effectively have nobody stopping them, right? Like if I were to pass to this guy, yeah, maybe someone could cut it out. But here, what, Rio's gonna, his body position's not great for this. You have Fede as the one who's probably gonna go to win this ball. This, again, no 6. If you had a 6, he would be right here. Big issue. Definitely a profile thing, but so problematic. And then they fire the ball in, a bit of a deflection, and it goes in. Can't really blame Ali here. I'm not really blaming Rio here. I'm blaming our lack of a 6. I'm blaming our lack of a midfield unit. We're like, I mean, let me just go to the regular view here. Like, I'm blaming so much. We just don't have a midfield that has any mettle at all. Like, there's nobody attempting to make an interception. There's nobody shielding the defense. Like, we're leaving the back 4 over and over again, and people are raging online that a 18-year-old left winger isn't pressing the midfielder. Like, hello? He should be on the left-hand side, helping the fullback, but he's forced to come inside because there's nobody shielding at all centrally. There's absolutely no one trying. And look, you can make, statements that you want to keep on still, right? And I understand it. Our press is getting better. It's not great, but it's getting better, right? We're playing better in general, okay, than we did during, like, when we lost 4-1 to PSV. But is that the standard? Is to play just better? I mean, with the team that we have, without a proper 6, without good fast wingers, right? Or like platforming Salah correctly, and maybe it's difficult to do that now with Flo and Hugo. Yeah, maybe we shouldn't win the league. But I'm not saying that we should be winning the league. I mean, that's not what I'm advocating for at all. But we should be beating teams like Wolves convincingly. And we're not. We're so lethargic, and that has to come down to coaching. If you gave Roberto De Zerbi this team, right, immediately, if he had 6 players back, they'd be playing the ball quickly. They'd be trying to make third-man combinations and generating transitions. For players like Mo, when we saw him get a mini transition, score a goal. But he doesn't do that. Arne doesn't do that at all. What he's doing now is playing such negative football that, maybe depends on set pieces, but I don't think that's his real goal. I just think we've gotten better at set pieces, which is definitely a pro. But I think he's just obsessed with this idea of control, and he had this quote where he was like, we need to kill them with passes, but we're trying to basically kill teams with carries almost, which is so slow and inefficient, and it relies so much on individual brilliance to beat a man like Hugo did, or we expect Ryan to. He's not platforming anyone, you know what I mean? He's not really doing coaching in the truest sense of the word. Even his pressing, right? He's committed another body forward, and we're still soft pressing, but there's another body forward. But there's still no structure to the press. It's basically press the closest man, which isn't an ineffective strategy, but it's not revolutionary. It's nowhere near how organized Klopp's presses were. And that's ultimately the issue. Am I slot out? I'm definitely more out than in. The issue I have is, if I brought in Xabi Alonso, is this definitely better now? Would it be better long term? 100%. But right now, what increases our chances of winning a trophy and getting top 4/5? And I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, that's it for me in this video. If you liked the video, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on Twitter and Substack at The Counterpress. And as always, thanks for watching.